What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gaming Without Parole. Sitting across from me this week and every week is Dezrah.
And sitting across from me is Brian Paul.
Catholic school made me this way.
Okay.
It's my new catchphrase. I worked on it all day long.
Yeah, Catholic school made it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll work.
And it's appropriate.
Is it true?
Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
So if you have to write something on a whiteboard, do you put your hand behind your back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I do that?
I don't know. Everyone I know who goes to Catholic school does that.
Oh my god. I don't even know why I do that, and I do it. Wow.
And actually it's a nice little tip. You want to freak someone out. If you see them writing and they have the hand behind their back, you went to Catholic school. And don't do it right away though. Wait like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah. I am scared of rulers. Yeah. So last week we talked quite a bit about why we love the company Namco, Bandai Namco,
right.
Of the 80s.
Yes.
It's like the kind of the genesis of their arcade scene, right?
And their pool products.
That's a different Namco.
Yeah,
right?
it's a different Namco.
Okay.
Actually, is that even out past New England?
Most people probably don't know what we're talking about.
It's a pool company up here, like pool swimming. So
Yeah.
if you want to buy like 5 gallons of chlorine, those are the guys to go see.
So we wanted to kind of follow up on last week's episode with jumping ahead to the next decade.
Mm-hmm.
Why we love Namco of the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
let's just jump right to it.
We'll
man.
just go into it.
Yeah.
So they continued on. I mean, this is, it was funny. I was having a conversation. We hired someone new at my other workplace, and he was talking about the podcast, and we're like, oh yeah, the last week's episode was about Namco. It's like, why? And he just kind of gave it that look. And he had the same reaction that we did. It's like, oh yeah, you really have no idea how big or influential Namco really is. I mean, again, kind of like beating a dead horse, but you talk about the most influential developers, Sega, Nintendo, blah, blah, blah. Namco never gets mentioned. But again, so here we are in the 90s, and they keep cranking out these massively influential games.
And the further we got in our research, the more I realized I think the 90s was my favorite generation for Namco.
Okay.
Or favorite decade for Namco. Oh,
that was exciting.
Interesting. Hey, that's never happened before.
Ooh,
we can keep going. I'll fix this as we go.
So I wanted to talk about the game that, this is going to be one of those ones where I think Brian and I both have very different experiences with this game, but both, I think we can agree it's a fantastic game, and that's Time Crisis.
Oh.
Specifically for me, Time Crisis 2, which was kind of where I cut my teeth. But yeah, this is a fantastic game. Now for me, I wasn't a PlayStation guy, so I played this in the arcade, but I played the crap out of this in the arcade. Time Crisis 2, well, in general, the Time Crisis series of games, they have their main idea is there's a cover mechanic.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're playing in the arcade, there's a pedal. So your foot is off the pedal, you're in cover, you press on that pedal, you pop up, you start doing your shooting. It's a light gun game. I think we mentioned a little bit in our light gun episode. See link below. Haha. No, I don't know.
Probably not.
No, I won't snap.
No, go ahead. Go.
Yay.
What happened?
Now, okay, I could say what I'd like to happen, but
yeah, maybe I'll figure it out when I'm editing.
Okay.
Just make sure you snap before the end of the episode.
Okay, I'll snap back to undo whatever it was we just did.
All right.
Okay. So yes, cover mechanic. You get up, you shoot stuff. Time Crisis 2 adds 2 really neat twists. One, it's the first one where there's a 2-player co-op available. So one of you can be undercover, while the other one is actually offering cover fire. The other addition, and really important, is the what do they call it? The hit warning? No, the crisis flash.
Oh yeah.
So here's the problem: in the first Time Crisis game, there are critical hits that will kill you instantly. Okay. You get no warning about which of these bullets or people shooting at you are going to be that. So if you don't dodge in time, you're instantly dead, and you're like, oh, I didn't know if I had to dodge that. The Crisis Flash in Time Crisis 2 gives you a little heads up, says, you know what? You need to dodge this.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, you need to dodge now.
You see the flash, boom, go into cover.
Yeah. The other thing that's unique about these is Time Crisis, not because they're time travelers, which would kind of make sense, I guess.
That'd be kind of
Time
cool.
Crisis.
Yeah.
It's Time Crisis because you have X amount of time to get through the level. And when you're undercover, you're chewing through that time. So you can die by either getting shot and killed or just by running out of time before the level's up. There's if you really, really, really need to go through this, I mean, you can find the plots to all the games online, but the plots don't matter.
Oh God, no! They're horribly acted. They're horribly, they're horribly written.
Yeah, and honestly, when I was doing this research, it's like, oh, they had plots. I mean, I suppose they had plots, but it's mostly, here's the thing, shoot it.
Yeah.
Don't get hit.
Whenever I played these at home, I don't know if I even really played them at the arcade. When I was at the arcade, I'd always play House of the Dead.
Yeah.
But when I was at home playing these, I'd always, jam on the button to skip the storyline. Like, let's get to the next part as fast as possible. Even ones with, like, storylines that I cared a little bit more about, like we talked about Vampire Knight a little bit, like I'd still skip those because that's not why you're playing these games.
So I wanted to ask you about this. This is what I found in my research, and I think this might be the one thing that would have pushed the home version over for me. Is it true you could use 2 gun cons?
Yes.
At the same time?
Yes.
That's freaking awesome.
And so you can. The great thing about it is they give you kind of a big choice of options on how you want to do this. You can use 2 guns at the same time, and the great thing about the gun cons, they have a D-pad right there where your thumb is, and so you can hit the down button, and that's your pedal.
Okay.
Right. So that's real convenient. It's like easier than hitting a pedal.
Yeah.
So you can do that. You can dual wield, or you can play with a friend that way.
Right.
Or do what my brother and I did that very awesome one time because it's such a pain in the butt to do.
Yeah.
You can push 2 TVs together and 2 PlayStation 2s.
Oh, and the link.
And link the things together. And then you can play 2 players on separate screens.
Right.
And oh my God, that might be the way to do this.
Which is actually how the cabinets worked in the arcade, too. Yeah. You had the 2 arcade cabinets next to each other, so you could play by yourself or link to the cabinet next to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Time Crisis was fantastic.
And I will say that D-pad was probably, I mean, it was cool having the pedal, like in the arcade, because it was this big motion, and it felt like you were moving with the character. But after a while, like that kind of hurt your ankle if you played for too long.
Yeah, just that down on the D-pad's right there. And you can do it much faster than a pedal action.
So definitely check these out. If you're one of these people who have these arcades around you, if they still exist, go play the real version in the arcade. It's just fun.
It's pretty awesome.
Straight up fun. Yeah.
The PlayStation 2 translations were great, but nothing will ever beat the arcade.
No.
I do have to say something about arcades.
Okay.
Because we talked a little bit last week about how, especially in the 80s, the home consoles weren't powerful enough to really bring that arcade experience home. But the first time, I feel like it did. Those consoles had the power to really make you feel like you had an arcade experience right there in your living room.
Yeah.
Ridge Racer.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Launch title for the PlayStation 1, Ridge Racer 1. Now, people have always claimed that the architecture of the PlayStation 1 was so similar to that Namco 22 board. Is that what it was called? I forget.
Yeah.
So that's why whenever they talked about Namco arcade games, like PlayStation 1 was always the first console to get them because they were an easy translation. I've heard from numerous places that that's actually not true, and that it actually took quite a bit of work to get it from one to the other.
Oh, that's sad.
However, I think it took like 8 months for them to get Ridge Racer from the arcade to the PlayStation 1, and it was practically arcade perfect. This was a game that sold me and everybody else on the PlayStation over the Saturn. Like, this was just an amazing, amazing game. It ran at a solid 30 frames a second, and it was pumping out 3D graphics like we'd never seen before. It had that awesome Ridge Racer voice. The sound of the engines were cool. It brought drifting from Japan. I know this is weird. It brought drifting from Japan to the United States. This was a concept.
Was that the first mention of drifting in pop culture?
This was a concept we weren't terribly familiar with, if nothing else. It may have been around, like the hardcore racing enthusiasts might have known about it.
Right.
But like this was way before Fast and the Furious. This was way before all that
Tokyo
stuff.
Drift.
Exactly. And we got it here, and like I remember being like, I don't understand exactly what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And it was a concept that was foreign to me. But as soon as I mastered that trick, which is necessary when you do Ridge Racer, of course, that's like 90% of the race is drifting. It was awesome. And Namco actually had a meeting, and they were like, can we bring this to the States? Will they understand this concept? And they said, yeah, they'll get it. It's a racing game. They'll figure it out. And boy, did we. It's amazing. Another great thing about this is that this is the first time we saw a mini game that you could play during the loading screen.
Oh.
You could play Galaxian.
That's right.
Yep. And once the game was done loading, you could start playing Ridge Racer. It didn't take long. It was only like a few seconds.
Yeah.
We didn't need the mini game. Oh, Namco tried to trademark that, by the way.
Oh, how'd that go?
And not so well. No, maybe, you know what? I think Sega actually might have tried to trademark that. I could be off on my facts.
I could actually use games like that again. I mentioned before, I've been playing through Skyrim, like 6 years after everybody else.
Yeah.
I see a whole lot of loading screens, and that would be nice to have something to do other than just kind of like manipulate the little characters floating in space.
Yeah. Let's play some Tetris or something, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, Pac-Man.
I just kind of go down to my phone and like, okay, check Facebook.
Right.
Are we there? No.
It's like a mini game.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was amazing. I remember getting it very early on in my when I owned the PlayStation 1. Mm-hmm. It was I loved that as soon as the game was done loading, after that Galaxian game was done being played, you could take the CD out. The entire game was loaded into memory, and then you could put in whatever CD you wanted, and it would randomly play music off of that CD while you were racing around the tracks.
Yet another innovation I'd like to have in modern games. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Just load that game once and have your own soundtrack.
I mean, the 360 really went back to that and tried to make custom soundtracks a thing. Mm-hmm. Now no one cares anymore, I don't think.
I'm sad.
And just there was one more version of this game that is worth noting, and that's a few years later, 1999, R4, Ridge Racer Type 4 came out. And it came out on 2 discs. It was amazing to see, first of all, the progression that Namco had done. Like, they really pulled every piece of juice out of the PlayStation 1 because Ridge Racer Type 4 looked drastically different.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, almost like a PlayStation 2 game. It was impressive. But there's a second disc, and they called it Ridge Racer Turbo. Excuse me. And it was a 60 frames a second version of Ridge Racer 1. You only raced against one opponent. So it wasn't quite as exciting, but it was sort of like this little tech demo they had that said, look what we can do.
Yeah.
And look what they could do.
60 frames a second is crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So that's Ridge Racer. If you haven't played it, then you're crazy. Rage Racer being my favorite of the series. It was very radically different, but I loved it.
And that kind of goes into a theme I think we're talking about, especially when we get into Namco's in the 90s and beyond, is they start getting into series of games. They are a franchise-centric company.
Yeah, they're committed.
Yeah, I mean, they have a few one-offs here and there, but once they find a formula that hits, they just... Well, milk it to death would be a less than charitable way to say it, but I don't think they get that. I think they really bring some freshness to every version.
Yeah, that's the thing. I never felt like they were milking a series. Mm-hmm. And if you want to skip an entry, it was fine. It didn't feel like you're getting beat over the head like they did with Assassin's Creed recently, Ubisoft.
Yeah.
This always felt like every entry was innovative.
Yeah. So that leads us to
another
the next series I want to talk about. And, it's funny, like going through this, I realized there is a genre of game that I don't play that much anymore. That used to be a good chunk of my gaming experience, and that was fighting games.
Yeah, I'm with you on this.
I was never really a Mortal Kombat guy. I know, I'm sorry. It was just, okay.
Get over here.
Right, it's gory. But it really wasn't that fun of a game to play, honestly.
In the arcades it was. It was fun to watch those fatalities for the first time. How did he do that?
Yeah, but then...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, after the first time, it's like, oh, okay, wait a second. These are just a bunch of actors that get screen captured.
Yeah, no, all shock value.
Yeah. But there was a game that wasn't all shock value. Mm-hmm. Well, Tekken. The Tekken series, it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best just traditional fighting games out there. The character designs, which I think I'm going to spend most of my time talking about, are just bizarre and wonderful and weird. Well, actually, they go from very generic and very weird, which is what I kind of like.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. The Tekken 2 is the one I'm going to talk about where I made most of my bones. And I think most people in the audience here kind of are most familiar with that. Came out in 1995. The PlayStation version, I didn't misspeak there, the PlayStation version came out in 1996, so that's a fairly quick turnover.
Oh, yeah.
The arcade version was number 1 for 24 weeks straight for coin-op arcades.
Right on.
And the PlayStation version, quick guess, how many copies do you think sold?
Ooh, this is tough because they don't sell like they used to. I'm going to say 4 million copies.
Actually, it's a little less than that. It was 3 million. So,
okay.
But yeah, it's still hugely popular.
You have to be conservative when you talk about like great sellers of the PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't as big of a business as it is now.
No.
A game that sells 20 million copies today would have only sold about 5 million then.
And at the time, it had broken records for their sales. In fact, its opening day sold 250,000 copies, which was the highest selling game of all time for that one day.
Opening day was
opening
that in
day.
Worldwide, Japan, US? Because Japan is rampant for these kind of games. I wouldn't be surprised.
You know what? I'll have to double check on that, but we'll put an addendum maybe. But that was actually at the time it was a record breaking sales number.
Nice.
Another kind of weird thing, like again, we're starting to talk about this generation where the console hardware can kind of catch up. The home port was actually better in a lot of ways.
A little bit better.
Yeah. There were more game game styles to play. There was better graphics in the cutscenes. There were actually like endings for all the characters in the cutscenes, where the arcade version didn't quite have all that. It's actually and today, this is great. You can pick it up on PS3. And also on mobile. There are mobile versions of it. The original Tekken 2.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember, how did I play this game? I mean, I played it obviously on the PlayStation 1 original, but it was great because I believe it was Tekken, oh God, don't misquote myself, Tekken 5, I think.
Okay.
Had Tekken 1, 2, and 3 included
yes.
in it.
Yes, yep.
Which is fantastic.
So I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the awesome characters. There's King. Who remembers King?
I do.
That
was the one with the lion head.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I guess I missed it at the time back in the day. He's not a cat man.
No, he's just got a mask. He's
a wrestler wearing a mask.
And he also has a tail.
Yeah, I know, right?
And not lion head. It's a cheetah?
It's a jaguar.
Jaguar.
Because he's a South American wrestler who, of course, is entering the competition to raise money for an orphanage. So, good guy King.
Oh, way to go.
I know. It's all these backstories that, I'm glad they put the effort into it, but we don't care. We just want to see Smash.
Yeah.
There was Kunimitsu.
Kunimitsu. Oh no, why can't I remember? Tell me.
She had the fox mask thing.
Yes.
It's actually a cat mask.
Very quick, fast motion.
Yes, exactly.
Fans, was it, or no?
No, she had little knives, little daggers, which actually didn't really cut or anything like that. She was just kind of holding them. One of the things I liked, she was also named Devil Cat, was her nickname. And she was trained by a very specific ninja clan, the Swastika Ninja Clan.
No bad connotations there, right?
Yeah, here's where we get into something I noticed, and we'll see this in another series we'll talk about later. There's some problematic character.
You mean like Kuma?
Kuma, yes.
I love Kuma.
Yeah. But wait, I guess was that? Oh yes, and of course one of my favorite Namco characters, and he shows up in Tekken and some other series, Yoshimitsu.
Of course.
Yes, Yoshimitsu has a lot of different character maps and models because he's actually a lot of different people. But in this, he had the monk sort of hat and the iron mask. He also had a sword.
Yep.
One of the only people in Tekken to have a weapon to start off with, and he had the most badass attack in any game, the Harakiri Attack.
Well, I know he spun a lot. Was this one of the spinning
he would spin a lot. He'd actually use his blades to spin around and like a helicopter, use it to kind of fly.
Yeah.
But the Harakiri was, he would basically grab your opponent, jab your own sword through you,
I remember
into your opponent,
yeah,
damaging both yourself and your opponent. But of course, if you timed it right, if they were just a little bit less than you,
yep,
there's your win condition.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty badass. And of course, probably the most problematic, I think, especially in today's day and age, is Chang. Which, Michelle Chang, okay.
Yep.
That would be the Native American woman in Daisy Dukes. Yeah. A little bit of a cultural appropriation there, but, as we talked, what was that? The Monkey King game that we talked about a few episodes, where it was from the Journey to the West, but they were like, oh. You're not going to understand that, so we're going to make it Native American.
Yeah, totally. It's, I don't have a huge problem with it if they tried to make every single Native American in the game to look exactly that way. I'd be like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, there's Native Americans out there that look like that.
Yeah.
There's got to be.
And, Daisy Dukes, thumbs up. And of course, we can't forget the combo. One of them you can only play if you unlock them, but Roger and Alex. Do those sound familiar?
Yes, one of them is a kangaroo.
Yes.
I don't know who the other one is.
The other is a raptor wearing boxing gloves.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
It's the same character. As far they just threw a different skin over it.
Yeah,
but
perfect for the Jurassic Park era.
Yeah. This is fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
It is a serious fighting game, but also there's definitely a little sense of humor here because you have badass samurai warlord fighting a kangaroo.
Was Mokujin in 2 or just 3? He was like the collection of wood pieces.
I think that was 3.
All right. Yeah, good stuff. Real good stuff.
But yeah, What makes it better than, and again, referencing back to Mortal Kombat, the controls. This was fluid. This was easy. I mean,
I'm glad you mentioned the controls because this was a game that is super easy to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Every button corresponds to an arm or a leg.
Yep.
And then button combinations do great things. And so it's easy to get into. I mean, this is a game that my dad and I used to sit on my carpet and play together.
Yeah.
He would never play PlayStation with me. This was nothing he did back then. He was a PC gamer. But this got him into console gaming.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, you had that just entry-level hand. You could hand someone who had never played these games and kind of figure it out. But if you wanted to be like the combo maestro and do all this instant, quick second timing and all that, it was there for you too.
Definitely, 20-hit combos were definitely a thing in this game.
For depth of play, for ease of use versus complexity of use, you can't beat these games. You really can't.
Moving on, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
For brevity's sake, we're doing our best to keep these on a shorter side.
We all like these games.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna have to restrain ourselves.
I like talking to.
It's okay. So last week I think we mentioned a little bit about how Namco failed on many levels when they tried to get Pac-Man into other genres of games.
Yeah.
Like Pac-Land didn't work out so well. You said anytime they gave him legs, not a good idea.
That's in general, yeah.
But not in this case. There was actually a trilogy of games, but it all started with the PlayStation 1 original, 1999, Pac-Man World. Now Pac-Man comes home on his 20th birthday. It just so happens to correspond to the 20th anniversary of the original Pac-Man.
Wait, so does that mean he was an infant in the original Pac-Man?
He was day one born.
That's much more disturbing.
That's why he didn't have any features. So he hadn't grown legs yet.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Still an amorphous blob.
So he's...
So he comes home on his 20th birthday to find, oh God, you ready for this cast of characters?
Okay.
Ms. Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Baby Pac.
Sure.
Junior Pac.
Why not?
Professor Pac.
Okay.
Chomp Chomp the dog.
I remember Chomp Chomp. I just had a cartoon flashback.
Do you remember Puka?
Puka.
I bet you don't, because I had to look this one up.
No, I do not.
Puka is the red guy from Dig Dug that has the big goggles on his face.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Apparently, he's part of the Pac-Man universe when they want him to be. Yep, no, now we know. He found them all missing. So he didn't find any of them, honestly.
So Pac-Man found them, not Puka.
Pac-Man came home to find that none of those people that apparently were supposed to be there were there. I'm guessing they were there to celebrate his 20th birthday. Right. So he sets out to find his missing friends and family.
Like you do. In the vein of, let's go with, I don't know, Crash Bandicoot. Now, I reference Crash Bandicoot not because it's one of those things where it's like a corridor 3D game, right?
But it is a game that's presented in 3D, but on a track, and I can't call it 2.5D or 2.5D depending on who you are. You are free to move around this kind of isometric area.
Okay.
But there's only one way to go. See what I'm saying here? This is not an open world.
So it's like on the rails, 2.5D.
It's 2.5D on an isometric plane. Let's do that. So it's a little strange.
There we go. That.
Yep. Something very good about this game. Anytime you hear sound effects, they remind you of the original game. Anytime you hear music, it reminds you of the original game. But it's all done in a nice, special way for the 32-bit era. The graphics are... I can't believe I'm saying this about a PlayStation 1 game. They hold up today.
Really?
They're bright. They're colorful. They get the job done. Pac-Man's a shape. Come on. I mean, it's not... You don't have to be too crazy with your graphics to make Pac-Man believable.
Well, I think that's when they get lost, when they try to make it more believable, try to make it high graphics. No, that's not what we want.
I mean, the sequel smoothed out all the edges and stuff and gave you a little bit more freedom in the worlds. And, they might be better games overall. But, man, I remember I was in college, and I went to see my buddy TJ. I was living in the dorm, and he was living off campus, so he was obviously cooler than I was. And... he was like, dude, I got this new PlayStation game. And, he was the guy that would always come over and borrow my PlayStation game. So the fact that he had one of his own, I was like, let's check it out. And it was this. And I was like, oh, God.
This is what you're bringing me?
Pac-Man World. Really? And then I played it, and I couldn't stop playing it. I ended up going out and picking my own copy up.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this was a surprise title for me. I'm a big, big fan of it. There's not much else to say about it other than I mean, give it a shot. You know, if you're a fan of the 32-bit era, this won't disappoint you.
Excellent.
Yeah. And we do have a couple honorable mentions before we...
I just want to cram one in here. Again, you know, it's funny, we're talking about like the 90s, and this is when I was in the height of my like arcade gaming. I worked in the summer camp in Maine in the latter half of the 90s, so anytime we had free time, we'd go up to the pier and hit a couple of different arcades that were up there. And this was a rare one. This was a hard one to find, but if you could find it, it was so much fun. Alpine Racer. It came out in 1994, and it's basically a skiing simulator.
Yeah, it is.
You've got these 2 foot pads you basically stand on, and then 2 poles you hold on to, but really your hands aren't doing everything. Everything is by the control of your feet. So if you can imagine your feet go on 2 individual pads, and you can tilt them like this, and then the whole thing switches from side to side.
And arcade games used to be so expensive to make.
Oh yeah, no, it was crazy expensive to make, right. But it was a whole lot of fun because you could get the sense of like, you know, you could actually cut into the corners. It wasn't just leaning your body. Right. You had to, you know, have your feet at the right angle too, so you can catch the snow, and that's
awesome.
You know, for me, like I make it a point to say skiing in the real world is something I'd never do. I hate the cold. I'm usually poor / cheap, and you need, you know, there's nothing that's more the opposite of that than skiing. You need a lot of money, and you need to like the cold. Yeah. So,
like, if I was a skier, I wouldn't even have a place to store my skiing equipment.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, you need all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a blast. I mean, every time I could find this, I spent a couple times playing it. It just brings me back to a time where, you know, arcades. Well, first of all, they had to be this crazy to get people's attention to try and play something. So.
I used to love Top Skater. It was Sega's on skateboard. I couldn't do it because I'm a horrible skateboarder in real life, but yeah,
it's just a sort of experience that doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, even if there are something like these simulator sort of rides, now it's more of a virtual, you know.
And you can play Alpine Racer at home. I actually stumbled across it today, I think for the PlayStation 2, I think. Mm-hmm. And Klonoa, one of Namco's other characters, is actually an unlockable character to ski down the mountain.
And you can do it, but...
yeah, it loses all appeal.
Yeah, there's nothing like, oh my gosh, the graphics are breathtaking, and It's
a skiing game.
Yeah, it was the physical interface was the coolest part of it.
And let's be fair, snowboarding games were never the same once SSX came out. SSX revolutionized the genre, and every snowboarding game before it might as well just go in the trash pile.
That's true.
Because SSX is awesome. Yeah. I got one final honorable mention for Namco of the 90s, and I have very little to say about it because I got to be honest, I had to look up a lot of videos today to remember exactly how this game played. It's called Dragon Valor. And this it was actually a 3rd game in a series called Dragon Buster, but this is the only one we ever got here in the States.
Oh.
So pick it up. It was on the surface, and probably if you go deeper, it's basically just a side-scrolling hack and slash.
Okay.
Yep, which is pretty awesome on its own, but it's also got some action platformer mechanics thrown in there, a little bit of RPG stuff going on. You choose, you make decisions in this game, and then that kind of determines who you're going to be in the next level.
Okay.
So you get many different characters, and then you do fight these giant dragons at the end of each level too. You got to play through it multiple times to see everything it has to offer. This is just great because this is one of those things where, just like Pac-Man World, like Namco wasn't resting on its laurels. It wasn't saying, "Hey, look, we got all these great arcade games, and we're going to bring them home, and that's where we're going to make our money."
Right.
They had a home console division that was like, "Okay, we're here to make new IPs," and I don't think Dragon Valor reviewed well, and I don't think it sold well, but like it's nice to see a company that's willing to take these kind of risks.
Yeah.
Because it might not have reviewed well, but it was good enough for me to remember and talk about today.
Right.
So if that stuff on the video screen behind me looks appealing, then maybe you want to check this one out.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. So let's wrap this up. This is Namco. Why we love Namco in the 90s. Make sure you tell us in the comments below what your favorite Namco games of the 90s were.
Sure.
Let's just go all out. What are your favorite Namco games of all time?
And we're still on the hunt for cool, not totally retro arcade places, but if you can find places that have, say, Alpine Racer, leave us a comment. I mean, it's worth a road trip.
I'm willing to go out and just play Dance Dance Revolution, to be honest with you. Not Namco. Yeah. I don't care. I just want to play DDR. Make a fool of myself.
Yeah.
All right.
You just want to watch the 12-year-old Asian boy kick your ass.
For Gaming Without Parole, I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Dezrah.
And we'll see you next week.